Hey, I'm Olivia,
I'm Regan.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. All right, so welcome to this week's episode of Soarin' Around WDW. We've got a little bit of news to jump into, a lot of bit of news. Of course, as always, as soon as we stop recording, they drop a bunch of news, and that is exactly what happened again this week. So, wanted to start off with some basic news before we get into all the news that everybody is talking about. But first, they decided to add a single rider line to Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. And this is great news for us as challenge runners, just because it gives another opportunity to not have to wait in a long standby line, potentially. So, kind of thinking about that from a strategy standpoint, Regan's been kind of trying to weigh our plan. And so Remy's single rider is definitely a positive thing in our eyes. Anything else you want to add about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to test it yet. My plan is to test it on Monday the 2nd, so the Monday following the release of this, because I'm blocked out for Thanksgiving week. But yeah, I mean, my assumption is that, like Olivia said, it just gives us another option where if we're unable to get a lightning lane or if the standby is super long, it's just
Yeah.
an option. It might not be significantly better. I don't know yet. I can't really speak to it, but I think that regardless, it's just good to have the option for single rider for as many things as possible. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So exciting about that. And then another piece of news was Villains Land. We had said we were going to talk about this a couple episodes ago. We kind of got distracted, and then last episode we ran out of time. But Villains Land, they did confirm the list of villains, or at least confirmed some of the villains that will be present. For sure, these ones will be in Villains Land in some capacity. So do you want to read the list of people that will be included?
yeah, D23 Brazil, they confirmed that I guess the verbiage is this is what the land is going to be inspired by. I don't know that that necessarily means that all of these villains will be present, but I feel like they will in some capacity.
Yeah.
So it'll be the Queen of Hearts, Jafar, the Evil Queen, which I'd imagine is Snow White,
Yeah.
the stepmother from Cinderella, Yzma, Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook, Maleficent, Gaston, Evil Queen as the old hag,
Oh.
Mother Gothel, Ursula, Hades, and Chernavog. So obviously people were really happy to hear a few of those like lesser known. So like Yzma is a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Mother
Mother
Gothel
Gothel.
hasn't had a lot of representation yet. And then Chernavog, obviously, a lot of people's favorite villain, and he wasn't featured in the concept art, so I think people are really excited to know that he'll
Who
be
is that?
involved to some capacity. Chernavog is the guy from Fantasia, the big bat guy
Oh,
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
good
yeah.
music from Phantasmic.
Yeah, Phantasmic. Okay. I don't think I knew his name. I
Yeah,
think I just knew him as Big Back Guy.
I always just knew him because of he was a Kingdom Hearts boss.
Got it. Was Captain Hook on that list? Did you say Captain Hook?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. So yeah, really, they've got like everybody that you would hope for. I mean, I don't know who are we missing if anyone can think of like a true villain, because I think we've talked about this a
Scar.
little bit. Oh yes, that's true, Scar. But a lot of the newer Disney movies, there's not necessarily a villain. It's like another person who isn't like the protagonist. I don't know. It's like the antagonist, but they're not necessarily like a villain. Like you think of Hades or Ursula. It's like Prince Hans or like the grandma in like in Encanto. Like it's not
Yeah.
a true like evil person necessarily. I mean, I guess Hans maybe you consider, but it's different than like a traditional Disney character villain. So yeah, it's I like their choices. I'm excited to hear more, but that was cool to hear about from Brazil.
Yeah.
Cool. And then another piece of news. So the Lightning Lane Premiere Pass did sell out for the first time at Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. And I was surprised by this. I do wonder what their cap was.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just like its upcoming holiday week, and so that's why it had sold out. But it was interesting to hear. And then, of course, shortly after that, then they announced that it would be available to all Disney Resort guests, not just the deluxe guests. So that was also interesting because, at first I said to Regan, why would they do that if it's already selling out? Like, why open it to more people? And he brought up the point, like, if you build it, they will come. Like, obviously, they are
Yep.
going to pay for it. So, yeah, definitely interesting that people are paying for it. There's a couple of YouTube videos out of, well, I'm sure there's more than a couple, but a couple of people that we follow, like all ears and stuff, that have purchased it and used it. So I want to go watch those videos and just kind of see what their thoughts are. Not that I plan to buy it or recommend buying it, but just to kind of see what it's all about.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will continue to evolve and change over time.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it really just seems like a luxury that's not super necessary.
yeah,
But, like, I guess if you're coming for, like, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of trip, it's like, I guess fork out the money if you can. But, like, you got to look at it as, like, if you have a family of 4, you're spending at least $1,600 extra on top of the hotel and tickets.
yeah, and
To
if
go
you're
to Magic
staying
Kingdom.
at like a value resort and you're spending $1,600 for that, wouldn't you rather just like stay at a nicer resort or like have more experiences? I just feel like there's a lot more you could do with that money
Yeah,
than
than just
that
rides.
when you could do multipass and still ride everything in a park in a day.
Yeah.
For the most part. So it just feels a little silly, but we'll see as it becomes more available to a larger population now, kind of what that means for people. But it's still not available just for annual pass holders that aren't staying at a resort. Is that correct? Like you have to
Yeah,
be
no,
staying at a
you have to
resort.
stay in a resort, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then the last big piece of news, and it's also huge, is that they announced this week that Muppets 3D would be going, and the home of Monstropolis would be the Muppets Courtyard. So obviously they announced that, and in the same exact announcement they said, but Muppets is not going anywhere. They will be taking over Rock and Roller Coaster at the park, and they made some vague statement about how Muppets 3D will be preserved and like kept alive still, just in a different capacity. So tell me your thoughts about this, because obviously we have lots, but I would love to hear what you're thinking about this announcement.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm obviously like I didn't grow up with Muppets really, so I don't super like I'm not really attached to them emotionally. So losing Muppet Vision 3D doesn't really bother me. I understand like the importance of like it being Jim Henson's last project and stuff, but I also like I saw a Twitter post from like I don't know if it's the legal team or if it's just like the Muppets team saying like that they obviously like agreed to this and that they like are excited about what the future of Muppets Vision 3D is. But what's really, really cool about where that land is going is that the show building for the roller coaster, the new suspended door coaster, is not going to be in like current land that exists. So it's like technically an expansion.
Right.
Monstropolis is a lot bigger than I think we thought initially from the concept art. And so the suspended coaster building is going back behind the current perimeter of the park. It's going to be taking up some of the parking lot area of like back past Mama Melrose by the Muppets store that's back there. Yeah. And then Mama Melrose is turning into, actually goes quite a bit deeper past Mama Melrose because Mama Melrose is turning into the Harryhausen's restaurant from the movie, which everyone was asking for as well. Obviously sad to see Mama Melrose go. We've talked a lot about that restaurant on this show. It's definitely one of my favorites in the parks. But like, that's a good thing to replace it with. I'm sure it'll be really immersive and cool. One thing that I think is interesting that I saw in DSNY newscast video that he was talking about was there's a show. So the show building where Muppet Vision 3D is It looks like it's being converted into some kind of Monsters Inc. show. And I'm curious to see if they're going to put... There's a billboard on the left side of the concept art for Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor.
Yes.
And I'm curious if they're going to put
that there.
Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor there. And then thus freeing up that space as well as to just Great Escape, like for maybe potential like huge revamp of Tomorrowland at some point in the future after Cars Land is all done. Because people keep talking about how like Animation Courtyard's wasted space, dead space, and blah 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 blah. But people have it on good faith and from like trusted sources that they do have a plan for Animation Courtyard at Hollywood Studios. We just haven't heard it yet. And so like Disney told us the first 5 years of a 10-year plan that they have. And so I'm assuming Tomorrowland is involved in that to some capacity, and Animation Courtyard is going to be involved in that to some capacity. So we'll see what happens. I think the only other option you really have for that little theater area then would be to do some kind of a stage show of the end credits.
Of Monsters, Inc.
Of Monsters, Inc., yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be great.
So really what we think is some kind of show in the theater where Muppet Vision is, a restaurant Harryhausen's back by Mama Melrose. What do you think is going to go where Pizza Rizzo is?
They'll just change it to some other generic quick service restaurant.
Okay. Yeah. And then obviously the roller coaster that's in the back. So so before we talk about the Rock and Roller Coaster overhaul, my initial thoughts on all this when I heard this was, number one, I really wish that it would have been Launch Bay instead. I know we've talked about this a little bit. I just feel like, why get rid of Muppets? Or I don't know, if they don't do something great with that theater, or if they just move Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor there, like, I don't know, it's that was kind of a bummer. But I, unlike Regan, did grow up a little bit on Muppets. I do love Muppet Vision 3D. I do it almost every time that I go to Hollywood Studios. Am I super sad to see it go? Yes and no. I do think they could move it elsewhere. I love the idea of it going into Hall of Presidents, which we talked about as well on the Magic Kingdom episode. But I think that they still have potential to keep it and just move it somewhere else, or I hope whatever capacity they keep it in. I do hope they keep it, but I think obviously the Monsters Inc. expansion is huge and needed and wanted. So it's like a very bittersweet thing. Like, I don't love the way they're doing this. But yeah, those are kind of my initial feelings without knowing too much more about exactly what's going in there and their future plans about everything besides the door coaster. And I love Mama Melrose, so I am definitely very sad about that. Harryhausen's, maybe if it's like a hibachi thing, I'll be excited about it. But if it's just like sushi, I don't know. It's like, I feel like that's a miss for a good amount of people, but I know there are people that would enjoy it, but I just don't know that I would ever eat there. So a little bit of like a about it. So I guess then tell me your thoughts about Rock and Roller Coaster becoming Muppets themed. Do you think it's fine? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? What are your thoughts about that?
Again, I don't care about Muppets, so it doesn't have a particularly positive impact on me, but like I do like the verbiage that was used as far as like they said that there's going to be like multiple stars alongside the Muppets. And so I think that what it could provide, which I think that ride desperately needs, is rewritability.
Yeah.
So like if they have... So, like, I talked about how I wish that instead of Aerosmith, it was Queen. But, like, they could have, like, one version of it be a Queen song just with the Muppets or with, you know, like, it could be a lot of different options. And then, like, that's part of what makes Guardians really fun is, like, you never know what song you're going to get.
Yeah, that would definitely be great.
What DSNY Newscast talked about is, like, if they had the stars that have be in the pre-show when you would go through, so then you know what song you're getting. But like, I don't know how they would sync that up.
Yeah, that would be hard because then you don't know where those people are going to be in line unless it was like a whole day of that person.
Right. Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that. The other piece of what I've seen speculated is that, like, the obvious thought when they say they're going to preserve Muppet Vision 3D is that they're going to just throw it on Disney Plus forever.
Oh, well, I mean, that's not a terrible. It's not the same, but that's not a bad idea.
No, I mean it's not horrible. But also, like, if you have that little area tucked away as Muppets with Rock and Roller Coaster, why not just extend it and put Muppet Vision 3D in the Lightning McQueen theater?
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking they're going to do. Like,
Yeah.
either scrap the villains idea or do villains until all this comes to fruition and then put Muppets in there. I hope that's what they do personally, but just because I feel like that theater, then that it feels more like sections in that park. Whereas right now it's very discombobulated. There's stuff all over the place. And
Yeah.
I just think that would make it feel a little more cohesive. But yeah, I am very disappointed about Rock and Roller Coaster. I think there were a lot of other great ideas that people have thrown out there. My favorite being Powerline, and like you're late for the Powerline concert, and Goofy Movie, because number one, they already own all the rights to it. Number two, they could do different Goofy Movie songs potentially. And I don't know. It just felt like they could do that well. Muppets, I do hope it's like different rock and roll music and not like the Muppets singing it, because that would be annoying to me and honestly make me not really want to go on it.
Yeah.
I do think there's different things they could do inside the actual roller coaster. Like once you take off, then the like stuff that's inside the dark part of the coaster is kind of lame and outdated. So I think they could do like this, Miss Piggy fountain in there, or like different Muppet stuff that's colorful and fun, and like make it a little more, not so, a little less dated, I guess. And I love the idea of, if they do have different, band members, the rewritability of having different songs, that would be cool. Or even the Muppets in the little show, pre-show, and then they're talking about all the different people that are going to be playing, and then you don't know which one till you get on it. I don't know, something like that. So it'll be really interesting to see what they could do. I also heard people toss around like they could have made this a Marvel coaster. They could have made, like, there were a lot of other ideas, and I think that somebody that we follow on Twitter, Brad, he said like, well, there was this change.org petition to put the Muppets on Rock and Roller Coaster, and so now Disney is just like listening to change.org, and that's annoying. I agree. I do think that's annoying. I think there could have been a lot better things that they could have done to like not kill people with the sadness about Muppets, but like still update Rock and Roller Coaster. And Rock and Roller Coaster was the first upside down coaster I ever went on. Our dad, who loves Aerosmith and loves like music from the 70s and 80s, he really was into that ride. We have a lot of great memories on that ride. So I think like the Steven Tyler like screaming 3, 2, 1 before you launch, like that's like so crazy. And I love it. So I don't know. It's gonna be missed for sure. I'm glad we're getting to go on it in December. But I'm just really bummed that this is the change they decided to make.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy about it. It's still the same ride, so
Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna be annoyed if like Miss Piggy's screaming in my ear or like singing a song.
Yeah. If that kind of stuff happens, that'll be annoying.
Yeah,
but I think they'll do well with it. But I mean, I think it is interesting of Disney to listen to a really, really small
group of people.
I mean, a relatively small group of people to like move Muppets. But I also like, I don't know, if you're gonna change anything to Muppets, I'd rather it be that than like Tower or something.
Oh my gosh, no! I would actually, I would riot. Yeah. I know Maddie said that. He was like, well, Tower of Terror's next. And then someone on Instagram that we follow that was commenting back and forth with me was like, well, they should scrap Beauty and the Beast and put something else there. And I was like, what are you people trying to do?
Agree?
Like, no, leave it all. No, that is the longest running stage show at Disney, and it is my favorite movie of all time. Like, there are things that need to be left alone. That's like somebody saying, let's retheme Pirates. Like, no, cannot. No, that's terrible. So,
should retheme Pirates to a better Pirates.
No. Oh my gosh, you're a heathen. People are Can never listen to this and freak out. Yeah, I disagree. There are some things that could be updated and changed. There are other things that should not be touched. And people are getting a little too crazy with their change.org petitions. So, yeah, so that's all the big news for this week. We'll definitely see and know more. But it sounds like they planned, the way that they kept this on was that Muppets will be able to stay open a little longer because they can start construction for the coaster since it's behind current technical park boundaries right now. They can do that before closing Muppets and Mama Melrose and Pizza Rizzo. So it just said 2025, but it didn't say when. So I'm guessing late 2025 is my guess.
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll see. All right. Well, it was perfect timing for this news because this week's episode, Parks of the Past Part 3, is Disney Hollywood Studios. And so when I was looking this up, this is my favorite park, if you can't tell by the way I'm so passionate about all of it. And when I was looking up everything, the history, the previous rides, it just made me super nostalgic and also super sad because so much has changed. Some of it for the better. It still is my favorite park. It's always been my favorite park, but there's just so many great concepts that I feel like they've scrapped and don't really have a lot of like direction for this park. And it's just kind of a bunch of different stuff thrown together, but I do think it has the best rides. I love the shows. So I hope that they just continue to kind of stay true to their roots a little bit, but they've definitely changed from the initial concept. So back when this first was coming to fruition, initially this whole park was going to be 2 different pavilions inside of Epcot's Future World. So there's going to be another pavilion called Wonders of Life, and then one that was literally called the Great Movie Ride Pavilion, and they were going to be in Epcot. But then Michael Eisner said, no, why are we doing that? We need to just make this a new park of its own. And this park was kind of his baby, his big inspiration, his big goal. And it started off a lot different than it is today. But it was a concept made with Marty Sklar and Randy Bright and also Michael Eisner. The park opened, instead of the traditional October 1st, it opened May 1st, 1989. And originally, as many people who are longtime lovers of Disney know, it was called Disney's MGM Studios theme park. And it was obviously number 3 of the parks built at Disney World. So construction started in 1987, so it took about 2 years, but it really accelerated because Universal Studios Florida started about the same time, a few miles away. So they were like, we got to get this out, crank it out. And obviously Universal in Hollywood had a very similar concept as far as being a studio, a working studio, behind the scenes of movies. So they really had to like try to make it unique and do it faster than the Orlando Universal Studios park. So in order to increase public interest in film and representation within the park, Disney decided to enter the licensing agreement with MGM, and that is why the name was initially MGM Studios instead of Hollywood Studios like it is today. There were production facilities on property, which we'll talk a little bit about, but they were removed in the early 2000s, and then the sound stages became different attractions, which we'll talk about as well. The current name, Hollywood Studios, didn't come into effect until 2008, and in 2010, they really started to distance from the original like backlot movie studio production intention and went more into like IP and attraction development inspired just by Hollywood, but not like a, more of a backlot tour kind of vibe. But in 1985, when they first made their licensing agreement with MGM, MGM gave Disney the worldwide rights to use their brand, their logo, and then that also included production facilities for films and television shows, a backlot, and a satellite animation studio where they would work on Walt Disney features, which actually I was surprised by a lot of them that were totally done in Orlando. It was interesting to read about. So this all began the operation of the actual studio. So this started in 1985. The park didn't open until 1989. So they were using it as an actual production studio and animation studio years before the actual park opened, which was super interesting to me. I did not know that. And then in 1988, so the year before the park actually opened, the first feature-length movie that was filmed in the park prior to the opening of it was Ernest Saves Christmas. Have you seen this movie?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I felt the same. I
know
was
if
like,
I've
it
seen
sounds
it,
familiar. Now I definitely want to watch it because I'm like, oh my gosh, it was all filmed in the park. And then Newsies was also filmed, like the original, obviously, not that there's a newer Newsies version, but was also filmed in the park. So that was super cool to know. But a big problem arose when in 1988, so a year before the park opened, MGM filed a lawsuit against Disney, claiming that Disney violated the agreement by operating a working movie and television studio at the resort. And on May 1st, 1989, the theme park opened, and the only MGM affiliation was supposed to be like the licensing agreement that allowed Disney to use their name and lion logo in marketing. So then they decided they could only use MGM specific content on the Great Movie Ride. So this became like a big issue in a fight between MGM and Disney, which is crazy because it was like at park opening. I thought this fight came way later, but I guess it started like way back then. And on opening day of the park, there were only 2 operating like moving attractions. One was the studio backlot tour and the other was the Great Movie Ride. The only other things in the park was something called the Monster Sound Show, which we'll talk about, and the Magic of Disney Animation. That was it. 4 attractions. And they opened the park, which is crazy.
Definitely rushed that to meet Universal, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. And then several months after the park opened, there was something called the Streetmosphere, which was like an improv troupe. Now they're actually called the Citizens of Hollywood. And so same, concept. And they're the longest running quote unquote attraction at the park. So they were there opening day to closing day because obviously Great Movie Ride is no longer there. Backlot Tour is no longer there. The Monster Sound Show is no longer there. And the Magic of Disney Animation no longer there. So nothing except for the Citizens of Hollywood is true to opening day, which is wild. That's so crazy to me. And you can tell they really lost the vision for like what this was initially supposed to be. Similar to Epcot-ish, a little bit. But Disney, after all this drama with MGM, they later filed a countersuit. So they sued MGM back because MGM had decided to build a theme park in Vegas. And in October 1992, the LA Superior Court judge ruled that Disney had the right to continue using the MGM Studios name on film products produced at the Florida facility, and then MGM had the right to build a Las Vegas theme park using the MGM name and logo as long as it didn't share the same studio backlot theme that Disney had. So they just couldn't do this like studio behind the scenes of Hollywood theme for their theme park. So there was a 33-acre, which is so tiny, MGM Grand Adventures theme park that opened in 1993 in Vegas, but closed permanently in 2000. So they had their own little thing.
7 years.
7 years. That's it. And it was tiny. Yeah. I don't even know. I didn't dig that much into like what was there and what it looked like, but it didn't last very long. And then Disney from then on was contractually prohibited from using the Disney MGM Studios name in certain marketing. So then they started calling it the Disney Studios or Disney Studios Florida, but like they couldn't use the MGM name in certain like marketing things like commercials and stuff like that. So that changed, in the mid 90s, which is crazy. So then we get into the 90s at the park, and as the park's popularity and attendance was growing, shockingly, with 4 attractions, the park saw its first expansion in 1994, so 5 years after opening, and they added Sunset Boulevard. So that's when Tower of Terror was first brought in. Then they also opened the backlot New York streets to help kind of relieve traffic, and then it was eventually renamed Streets of America. So they were trying to do some things to alleviate all the traffic going to these 4 things that they had open. During that same decade, Walt Disney, the feature animation studio on site, assisted with producing Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Mulan, Lilo and Stitch. All of those were completed entirely in the park studio, which is crazy. Whoa. So all the drawings, all the animation, everything was completed in the park studio. And then Walt Disney Studios Florida had 3 sound stages, which Disney hosted like Mickey Mouse Club, which I did not realize was I kind of remember in Britney Spears' book that I read recently that she said that was filmed in Orlando, but in my head like I was like where? But I guess it literally was on the back lots in Hollywood Studios. Teen Win Lose or Draw, which I don't know what that is. Adventures in Wonderland, those were all shot entirely in Florida. And then a lot of third-party productions like MTV shot stuff there. Let's Make a Deal, Wheel of Fortune sometimes shot there. So, and then also some like WCW, like World Championship Wrestling shot there. So it's crazy, all the different stuff that was done there that now it's just totally gone, a lot of those spaces, or there's rides or shows or whatever in those backlots. But they were actually usable backlots for a long time, which is really cool to hear about. Did you ever watch any of the old, like, or have you seen, we didn't watch it, but old videos of the Mickey Mouse Club back in the day? Like, have you seen any of them?
I've seen, like, clips of, like, Britney Spears and stuff.
Yeah, like Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. I've seen those clips, but I don't think I've ever seen, like, a full episode.
Okay. And so then things started to change again, and in 2001, they brought on the Sorcerer's Hat, which was placed right in front of the Chinese theater and began to be the park's icon. Before that, the park's icon was called the Earful Tower, which is basically like the water tower with ears, which is interesting. But in 2004, Disney closed the Florida Animation Unit, and the Backlot's residential street was demolished to accommodate the Lights Motor Action Extreme Stunt Show in 2005. And then in 2007, Disney announced that MGM Studios would be renamed to Hollywood Studios in 2008. That same year, the former Stage 1 soundstage, which was where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was, became Toy Story Mania. And then the surrounding area was rethemed to Pixar Place. So a lot of changes, pretty quickly.
Before, there was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then there was the American Idol show.
Well, the American Idol show was done in the Doug Live Pavilion.
Where Frozen is now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was like next to, so Little Mermaid, next to that's like One Man's Dream, next to that used to be, which we'll talk about all this too, but next to that used to be like the walk through the movies like Narnia and Haunted Mansion. Then
I remember that, yeah.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was next to that, and that used to be the entrance to Toy Story Mania, which in my head makes no sense based on where it is today, but it's because they've like totally rearranged so much stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that used to be where where Soundstage 1 was. And then in 2017, obviously huge change. The Great Movie Ride closed and was replaced by Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway eventually. So that's kind of a brief overview and history of the changes at Hollywood Studios. And now we're going to kind of get into the actual attractions and shows that are now gone and what they've been replaced with, because there has been so much change. Some things I knew about, and some things I was like, oh, I've kind of heard about that, but we never saw it, or we were too little, or we weren't alive when it was out. But the first thing that started off was a show called Superstar Television. And that was from 1989 to 1998. It was in the Doug Live / American Idol / Frozen stage. And it basically was this opening day show that was sponsored by Sony. And prior to its opening, there were some things that were calling the park Disney's Television Theater. And the show basically was trying to get guests of the park to listen or to get the MC's attention so they would make them participate in the show, and it kind of like made them feel like they were on a live TV show even though it wasn't. So similar to like Price is Right, but it's not a game show like that, but like you had to like try to get them to pick you, and or like on Indiana Jones, the stunt show, where you try to like do crazy stuff to get them to pick you to go up there. And then once the guests participated, they were taken backstage and they literally got like costumes and makeup, and they'd participate in little skits from different like popular TV shows. Like some examples they gave were General Hospital, Bonanza, Gilligan's Island, Cheers, The Golden Girls, and I Love Lucy. So it was like a very like similar to a lot of other shows at Hollywood Studios where you wanted to get picked to be involved in the show as a guest of the park. And this was replaced in 1999 by one of my personal favorites, Doug Live. Doug Live ran from March 15th, 1999. When do you think it closed? Take a guess, because this shocked me. How long do you think it lasted?
2006?
No, it only lasted till 2001.
It was only 2 years?
I know, dude. How many times do you think we saw that show? Like 10, right?
At least.
Yes, we loved this show. I don't know necessarily why. Like, I love the show Doug, but for whatever reason, our family was obsessed with this show. I still remember the Quail Man part. And it was another show where, you know, they tried to pick someone from the audience, a kid, to be involved. And it was about, you know, Doug and Patty Mayonnaise. And, you know, it just kind of went through like this little skit that they made up specifically for this thing. It wasn't like a repeat of an episode or anything. But yeah, it only ran a little over 2 years, which shocked me solely because of the amount of times that we went to that show. And Dad actually was texting me some pictures today and texted me a picture of my pin lanyard that is at his house in a box that has a Doug Live pin, which is so cool. So yeah, it was only for 2 years. But basically Doug had some back and forth between networks because it initially started on Nickelodeon, but then became part of ABC's One Saturday Morning lineup. So Disney kind of got it through ABC. And that's why they were able to do the Doug Live show, because almost everybody is like, wait, wasn't that Nickelodeon? And it was, but Doug kind of switched where he was. Were you a Doug fan? Do you remember the show? Or were you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it. I mean, like, I don't know if I was a fan of anything when I was that young, but I remember enjoying the live show. Like, I think I've probably seen that show more than I've seen Muppet Vision.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't been on Muppet Vision, I don't know, maybe 15 years.
What? Are you serious? Oh, we just went in February. I make them go every time. I make Maddie go every time. And sometimes it's a nap for him, but I love it. I think it's so cute. Okay, yeah, so Doug Live, yeah, I know we saw it so many times, so that just blew my mind that it was only 2 years in the running. But, well, now you're making me question, because now it says yeah, I think so my notes say, somebody fact check me if I'm not right, that it sat empty. So they closed Doug Live, but put nothing there until the American Idol experience in 2009. And I kind of remember this only because I remember being like, why would they get rid of Doug Live and put nothing here? Like, what a waste of space. I was very frustrated as a young child because I really was that passionate about Doug Live. But yeah, it sat empty for years until American Idol came. And American Idol ran from 2009 to 2014, also shorter than I thought it was. I thought it had been there for quite a while longer. But then was replaced by the Frozen, which is there now for the first time in forever, Frozen Sing-Along Celebration. But American Idol was basically, there were a lot of rules that I wasn't sure, because I went to this show maybe twice, but you guys went more than that, right? You watched this a few times? American Idol?
I don't know I ever went on that.
Oh, really? I thought for some reason you and Steph said you've been on that before. Maybe I was confusing that. But I think I did it twice. Like, I watched it twice. And I was like, I liked American Idol, but I feel like it was another, like, past its time thing. Like, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan. But it was basically you had to be 14 years or older, and usually cast members would try to limit between the ages of 15 and 28. You had to be an American citizen or on a work permit, supposedly. And you were chosen by a Disney cast member. And if you passed by singing in front of them, then you would sing in front of an audience at one of the live shows. And at the end of the day was a final performance and a daily winner. And the winner would actually get a dream ticket, which allowed them to bypass the first round of like a regional audition. If the person chosen did not meet the qualifications, or they were too young or whatever, they could wait until they were old enough or pass it to a family member, like the actual dream ticket, which is crazy. So it's like, oh, you didn't do anything to win this, but I'm going to give this to you to go like be in the next round, like a higher round of American Idol, which like blew my mind.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I am curious. I don't know the percentage of people that went on this show that then went to like actually be on TV on American Idol, like go farther. I don't think it's many, but
probably not many.
I was curious about that. I do remember the 2 times I went, one was like a really young girl who was really good. But the thing about this is, which is the same with a lot of these like game show type things they tried to do at Hollywood Studios, is if you won, it took up a lot of your day because then you had to come back like at the end of the day. So it's like you paid all this money to go to Disney. Maybe it's your only time going. You win this American Idol contest, but then you like go to the final round like at the end of the night too. So it was interesting. I don't know if they then got like special treatment throughout the day or like fast passes for other things. Probably not. I didn't read anything about that, but
probably not.
It just seems like a lot of time. So yeah, that was the American Idol experience. And then another thing that is gone, is the Animation Academy. So that was from 1989 to 2015, where you actually got to do a drawing session with a Disney animator. So this was replaced by Star Wars Launch Bay, and they still have this in other parts of the parks. So they have it at the Art of Animation Hotel now, which makes total sense. They also have it at Rafiki's Planet Watch. So when you take the train out, in Epcot, there was supposed to be a version of this with Edna Mode from The Incredibles in that play pavilion that we talked about last week that didn't come to fruition. So you can do this in other places.
It's in Disneyland also, California Adventure.
Yeah, and then I think on the cruise ships, they also have classes like this on some of the boats. So it's a cool concept. I think especially getting to do it with a Disney animator is something really cool, and it fits the theme of the original park. But that was gone in 2015 and was replaced by the Star Wars Launch Bay, which, as we talked about, is basically pointless right now, and they need to do something else with it. But that is what replaced it. And then there was something called the Backstage Pass, which was there in 1989, but was actually originally part of the Backlot Tour. That lasted until 2002. And there was something like originally when it was part of the Backlot Tour, this was like the walkthrough part, and it was split up from the actual like tram tour part of the Backlot Tour. But then this became its own walkthrough part in 1991 and remained walkthrough only until it closed, while the tram part stayed a lot longer in the park. There was something called the Creature Shop, which they actually had the logo up above this until 2011. And then there were different movies that were featured, like different props and stuff, but they definitely had a lot of live action 101 Dalmatians stuff, I read. And then after that movie kind of came out, it went downhill a little bit. But it was replaced eventually by The Voyage of the Little Mermaid. So that's kind of where it was. And One Man's Dreams, like that whole strip was this Backstage Pass, and then eventually was replaced by the Millionaire Play It game, and eventually totally gone due to Toy Story Midway Mania, except for the Voyage of the Little Mermaid and One Man's Dream. That's separate. So it was like a whole strip down that road that was used for this walkthrough stuff. And then the Magic of Disney Animation, which was like actually back in some of the former production facilities. This was open 1989 to 2015. And this is where they did this like ink and paint thing for the Little Mermaid. They had a little Who Framed Roger Rabbit thing at one point. They had how they animated the Be Our Guest sequence from Beauty and the Beast. Like they changed it based on what was coming out. So they talked about Jasmine and the design concept for her and Aladdin. I Just Can't Wait to Be King from Lion King, Mulan, Lilo and Stitch, Brother Bear. So they had all these different things back there that you could go and watch how they created it, which is really cool. Apparently it was one big showroom where a Disney animator showed guests how the characters were chosen and designed. And then once Mulan had come out, there was this whole thing with Mushu kind of showing you how, parts of Mulan came to be. But Mulan was actually the first of three films that were produced in by like solely like created produced by the Disney division, whereas the other movies that we talked about earlier were drawn there but weren't fully produced, I guess. But that whole building closed in 2004. There were like special meet and greet things back there. There were also like games and stuff. And then it also, the section called Animation Academy, which we talked about, was a part of that as well. So this was always kind of behind Launch Bay, which I do remember this. I remember walking through this. And it was kind of a longer attraction with this showroom. But yeah, that the whole thing closed in 2015, but different pieces were only open at certain times throughout those years. So that is that one. And then there in the Big Blue House, live on stage. Do you recall seeing this? Because I remember you going to this like quite a bit.
Yeah, I do remember this. But that was when I was really, really young.
Yeah, this was only same thing, like very short time, 1999 to 2001, but then it was replaced by the Playhouse Disney live on stage, which was like Roly Poly Oly, Stanley, The Book of Pooh, JoJo's Circus, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Little Einsteins, Handy Manny. Like it changed based on the Disney Junior shows that were popular. Jake and the Neverland Pirates, Sophia the First, Doc McStuffins, and now it's the Disney Junior Dance Party, which is cute. It's very cute. And Mickey comes out during it, and there's like a lot of little character meet and greet areas. So it's great for little kids. It's like air conditioned. It's not usually a wait. You can meet with characters afterwards. It's cute. But I do remember you guys spending a good amount of time over there when we were riding roller coaster stuff.
Yeah, I remember that too. Pretty fun. Like you said Roly Poly Oly. That's like crazy.
So good. And I don't think PB&J Otter was part of that, but also another really good Disney Junior show. And then another thing that was very short-lived was something called Club Villain. And this was actually in the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy Theater. It had a DJ, a bar, and food. It was a 2-hour dinner show, basically, which had lots of the villains. And it was usually performed twice a night, 2 or 3 nights a week. And the dinner show initially cost $129 a person, but then people said that's way too much. So they paid $99 a person. And Disney, you know, they had to drop the cost because people just weren't into it. But the show was led by the villain in The Princess of the Frog, Dr. Facilier, and then there was another character called Konzo, which was like a unique character that they made up just for this. But it didn't last very long, mostly because people just didn't want to pay $100 on top of what they were already paying for the park entrance. Like they just didn't think it was worth it for the meal. But that was something that was housed where Lightning McQueen used to be. And obviously Lightning McQueen is gone now. That was from 2019 to 2024. It was only a 10-minute show, so it was pretty quick. But basically there were these big screens that almost went all the way around the theater, and it was 2 stories tall, so it was very, very tall screens. And then Lightning McQueen would come out on the stage, and it was just a cute little quick show, but now is going to be replaced by the villain stage show, which we are going to learn more about here soon. And speaking of villains, this was something I thought was interesting that I don't ever remember hearing about. And I was like, oh, okay, this is very random for the park. But I guess when they were trying to get some more popular stuff in, they had this very temporarily. But there was a Goosebumps Horrorland fright show. Did you know that?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, so this was 1997 to 1998. So, I mean, you wouldn't have been there. Well, maybe when you were a baby. But I would have maybe had some vague recollection of this from when we had those first couple visits before you were born and then when you were really little. But this was near like the New York streets of America, and there was a stage show, and there was this whole R.L. Stine kind of section. There was like this creepy maze, there was the show, and people were like, this doesn't really fit with the Disney like happy theme, so that was like a big reason. And then also the book series had just like about come to an end. But it's interesting because now there's that isn't there a new Goosebumps show on Disney Plus with Justin Long?
I don't know about a show. I thought there was a new movie.
Oh, maybe it's a movie. Oh no, maybe you're right. Maybe it's a movie. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But Disney owns it. Is that not right? On Disney Plus?
Wasn't it Jack Black?
Maybe it is Jack Black. Hold on. Goosebumps movie. Maybe I'm thinking of, yeah, maybe I'm thinking of something else with, oh yeah, no, you're right. Jack Black. And it is not Disney, it's Netflix. So I don't know what I'm thinking of. Like some creepy show, Disney Plus show with Justin Long. Please hold. Oh, it is. No, Goosebumps Disney Plus show.
Interesting. So they just like relaunched it on multiple facets at the same time.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. And Disney does it. I don't know why. It's interesting. I haven't watched it. I wasn't a big Goosebumps fan. I don't like scary stuff like that. But yeah, so that was part of the Hollywood Studios park. And then last but not least for today's episode, and then we will have to do a part 2 of Hollywood Studios because there's still so much to talk about. But the last one that I wanted to touch on before we do our trivia is the Great Movie Ride, which obviously was a very beloved ride. A lot of people were really upset when they decided to replace it, but it ran from 1989 to 2017. It was 22 minutes long, and it was this journey through the movies. The queue had all these amazing props from Narnia, Sound of Music, Top Gun, Titanic, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then
Wizard
the actual ride... Yes, Wizard of Oz. The actual ride took you through the Footlight Parade, Singing in the Rain, Mary Poppins, The Public Enemy, Alien, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tarzan the Ape Man, Casablanca, Fantasia, Wizard of Oz. And at the end of this ride was the most amazing, like just got you right in the feels, whole, I don't know, it was probably like 3-minute long production of inserting all these different movies, and it kind of took you through a journey of the movies. It was on this huge screen where all the cars would kind of pull up at the end and you would watch this little sequence of movies. So I loved this ride. I think we've talked about this already in our old versus new, but I just thought it was so fun that it like put you in the movies. I loved all the movies they featured, and I thought that they really should have kept this and just redone some of it, maybe updated things a little bit. But I loved the ending where it showed all the movies. It was just like such a fun ride. And I do love Mickey and Minnie's, but I think that could have gone in Toontown or something similar to over in Disneyland. But what was your favorite part about this ride when you were younger?
The Great Movie Ride?
Yeah.
I think my favorite part, it had to, I don't know. With the Wizard of Oz section's really good, and then the Tarzan section I liked because I liked Tarzan a lot as a kid, even though it wasn't the same Tarzan. And then the Indiana Jones part I always liked. I always remember being terrified of the alien part. But, no, yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good ride. I don't know that it's something that I don't know. I feel like I miss it more as I get older.
Yeah.
And like after going on Mickey Minnie, like Mickey Minnie's is good, like you said, but I don't know.
It doesn't necessarily fit there. I just feel like it's a random place. I think Toontown would have been such a better place for it. But the Great Movie Ride was like the icon of the park. Like it was their opening day and it just made sense with the theme. But now that they're getting away from this more movie Hollywood theme, I guess I get it, but like I'm still a little upset about it. A little bitter because I really, really, really loved this ride. So I don't know. I kind of hope that there's in some world not a chance of it coming back there, but them doing something else with the movie theme eventually, because it just feels like they've totally lost touch with it. But they were quite.
Did I dream this, or were they planning on doing like a standalone attraction?
I don't know if you dreamed it, but that would be really cool.
Like somewhere
I'd
random.
be into it. Yeah, I would really be into it. Like just something even updated. Like I love the projection show that they do at nighttime at Hollywood Studios on the Chinese theater. Like I just feel like there's so much joy in the movies and getting to like have that little tribute to animation and Disney and all these different classic movies. That I just feel like that park is really, really missing now. So that'd be great if they did some kind of standalone. I don't know if maybe
No,
if we
I
start a
definitely
change.org
dream
petition.
Yeah.
Let's start a change.org petition and get everybody to sign it.
That must have been a dream I had. I don't know why. Like I was like in my head, I was like, this
Vivid.
is definitely happening.
Oh, that's so funny. No, I have not heard anything about that. That would be amazing. Okay, so getting into our trivia for the week.
What about old versus new? We have no old versus new.
Old versus new first. Okay, yeah, sorry. So old versus new. This is a I don't know how to explain it. Not controversial, but getting into thinking about the actual icon of the park. Were you a fan of the Sorcerer's Hat versus the Chinese Theater versus the Earful Tower? So there's a little three-parter here. Which one did you think really was the icon of Hollywood Studios, or what's your preference? Do you miss the hat? Do you not miss the hat? Like, what was your opinion there?
I mean, like, the hat was fine. I don't know why people hated it so much.
I'm one of those people.
Oh, really? I don't.
I hated the hat.
It was kind of like whatever. I feel like the Chinese theater isn't quite big enough to be considered an icon, personally.
Okay. Okay.
Like, I understand the thought process behind it, but I just feel like it's not as, like, booming as the other ones.
Well, compared to, like, the castle, the Spaceship Earth ball, the Tree of Life, like, yeah, it is a lot smaller.
Right. So, and I don't think it was ever intended to be the icon. Clearly, if they had the water tower was the icon before. So, I definitely don't think the water tower should be it. But like, I don't know. Yeah, I think the hat was probably better than the Chinese theater.
Yeah, see, I kind of agree with you that I think the Chinese theater maybe shouldn't be the icon, but I did like the Earful Tower. I thought it was funny that they called it the Earful Tower, like the Eiffel Tower. But they had to take it down because it was in the way, which we'll talk about in our part 2 episode. And like, yeah, a lot of times when I was going through this, I had to pull up a map and be like, where am I? Because there is so much happening and so much change, and like, I can't picture where this is. But yeah, they had to take it down because it didn't fit what they needed when they were getting ready to do Toy Story Land. So it had to go. But I actually liked the Earful Tower the best because if they did the Sorcerer's Hat somewhere else, but it was like you walk in, I don't know. I did not love it. But the Earful Tower, I feel like fit the movie theme. The water tower was cool. You drove by it when you went on the backlot tour. I don't know. I really liked it. And you could see it from Tower of Terror, which I also loved back in the day. So, yeah, I would vote for Earful Tower.
Interesting.
Okay, so getting into our trivia question. This was one that I was like, ooh, this is a interesting question. How tall is the terrifying Ursula puppet in The Voyage of the Little Mermaid? Is it 12 feet tall, 15 feet tall, 8 feet tall, or 10 feet tall?
Man, it's been a long time since I've seen that show.
Yeah, true. Same.
I'm going to go with 12.
Okay, I'm going to say 15. Let's see. It's 12. You're right.
Yeah.
Good job.
I had no frame of reference for that. I just guessed.
I know, it has been a long time. That's another one that, like, supposedly is coming back, but they still haven't set a date, so it's like, all right, we'll see when that happens. Okay, well, that is the end of part 1 of the Hollywood Studios Parks of the Past. Definitely would love to hear everybody's thoughts. I know everyone's been sharing them about the changes coming to Hollywood Studios, but also what you missed most from the park, because there's been a lot. We'll get into the rest of it next time. And do you want to do your little Club 33 shout out?
Yeah, I forget which week this is. 7 now?
I can't keep track. 6, 7, something like that.
It's 6 or 7 of me asking for people that have access to Club 33 currently in the area, so convenient timing. But
yeah, I don't think we've said that.
Yeah, oh yeah, my work has me assigned in Orlando So I actually have been able to go to the parks a lot lately, which has been nice.
Yeah. Casual guardians after work.
Yeah, yeah, it's been fun. But I'm blocked out for a lot of the time that I'm here because of the holidays, so that's no fun. But anyway, yeah, Club 33. If you guys know anybody or if you're involved in Club 33, I would love to attend and just visit the clubs you get to go into and stuff. Just curious what it's all about. So DM us or reach out if you guys have access. And yeah, I think that's it for this week.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks everyone for voting in the polls for this Parks of the Past. Thanks for your feedback on the episodes. If you've listened to our episodes and you haven't yet, please follow us on Spotify, rate us on Spotify, or if you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the like button, and then drop a comment below of what you missed most from Hollywood Studios or what you think about the changes to the parks. And we look forward to getting into the rest of it with you soon. We are about 2 weeks out from our run, so we're also going to have to do a little run update at the beginning of the next episode because that will drop like the week before we go. So the part 2 of Hollywood Studios will also have a little run update in the beginning of it because we got to get into that here soon. But thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
See you next week.